with a community, I don't think it's about going in and I'm going to make this space and I'm going to show up one time a month and you're going to be able to do all of these things and it's going to run perfectly. It really is just, let's go in, let's try this, let's see what happens. Let's try a number of different things, see how it feels. What do the members need at that moment? And really just being willing to test and tweak and evolve with it.
This is Rebel Therapist, a podcast for entrepreneurs who are trained as therapists and who want to level up their businesses, make a bigger impact, feel fulfilled, and be very well paid. I'm your host, Annie Schuessler. Do you dream of creating a membership community? And are you wondering how to make your membership community incredibly valuable? As you're about to hear, it takes planning, intention, care, and the willingness to experiment. You're about to get a masterclass on creating a community from Erica Courdae, co-founder along with India Jackson of Paws on the Play community, a hub of entrepreneurs and change makers connecting at the intersection of values and visibility. A little more about Erica before we dive in. She's dedicated her life to expanding how others interact with the world through powerful conversations. As an entrepreneur and certified coach, her work is focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, otherwise known as DEI, imperfect allyship, and imposter syndrome. This work has taken her into communities and onto national stages as a speaker and educator at events like AltSummit, ShePodcasts Live, and Being Boss. She's also the owner of an inclusive beauty salon, Silver Immersion, and the host of Paws on the Play, a podcast that features open dialogue on topics like company culture, visibility, and mindset. Welcome, Erica.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here, Annie.
Will you please tell us how you and India Jackson arrived at what you decided you wanted to do with Paws on the Play?
It started with literally just being in a conversation that we turned into an audio blog. And so we've been friends for well over, 10, 12 years at this point. And so for us, dialogue is not only just communication, but it's a way of really working through things, and ideas come from it and perspectives, and it opens things up. And we were playing around with it. It's like, oh, well, let's see what happens. And this audio blog was kind of cool. And someone was like, you have a podcast, right? And it was like, oh, no. And it began to take a little bit of a life of its own because we could clearly see that the work that I do as a diversity, equity, and inclusion coach and consultant, and the consulting that she does in her space of marketing and visibility, that there was a lot of overlap. For me, there would be people that would want to do things but didn't understand how this entire DEI and mindset and just the other stuff that wraps around it were important. And she could see how she would have clients that really wanted to do things, but yet there was something that was just preventing them from moving forward. And it's like, if we work with them together, then it facilitates the goal in a much smoother way. And so it really opened up what it looked like to work together, and then creating the platform that then became Paws on the Play, the community.
How far into the podcast did you start building the community?
We started the community back in March of last year, which it just so happened was right at the beginning of pandemic. So that was a little rough.
March 2020.
Right. Because we we announced it in the episode that we recorded together at AltSummit, knowing that it was going to come out. And literally it was like a week later that the whole world got shut down. It was like, damn it, I didn't quite work out the way we thought. But at that point, I want to say we were probably 40 or 50 episodes in. And so we knew that this was something that we wanted to do. Part of what we were very reluctant to was doing it on Facebook. But of course, for a lot of people, that's where they were. And so it made perfect sense. But we ultimately moved it off to where it currently is, which is Mighty Networks, because we did not like the kind of big brother feeling of Facebook. Like, what are you talking about? You're going to say this word and I'm going to target you with an ad and the algorithms. And so we were like, yeah, no, we got to go. We talk about things that are a little more sensitive. And because of that, we really wanted to feel like we had a closed container for it. And so when it came up, I mean, and it still, has its iterations that it's going through, because communities are a work in progress constantly.
Yeah. So you've already named one of these. I'm wanting to find out, what are some of the systems and processes and things that you've developed to support your mission, your vision, what you really want Paws on the Play to be. And so the first thing I'm hearing is you moved it over and you're on Mighty Networks.
Correct.
And I know that because I'm in your network.
Because you're awesome. And I like having you in the room. It makes me happy.
Thank you. So you moved over there. It's like more private. It's more intentional. And it also feels like it's a place where you and India are directing the conversation in a way that I wasn't there in the Facebook, but I'm imagining from my own experience that it was just harder to be so intentional over on Facebook.
And I think in some ways Facebook has its benefits, because for some people you're already there. But the other side of it was that it was a little bit difficult to know that you are talking about sensitive things and you're kind of having to remind people to check in and talk about anti-racism in between the cat memes that their family members bombard them with in the baby photos. And it's like, this is not very intentional with what I'm coming in here to do. And so Mighty Networks, switching over to that was definitely one of the things that was really helpful. I think for us, we do workshops in the community. And so playing around with the ways to do that. And so we use Zoom for calls, but using Crowdcast was something that we really enjoyed when we would do live podcast recordings for the community, because it meant that the people in the community could be a part of the recording and stay anonymous for when it was actually released to the public. But it gave them an opportunity to say, I want to chime in. Here's what comes up for me. They got to really be a part of that. So that was definitely another one that I found was really helpful to facilitate a different way of doing things. And now another one of those is Searchy, because we're able to do part of our contribution as far as being accessible. So creating something that has closed captioning to it for any of the videos that we have. They're easily searchable and they have transcripts to them. You can change the speed and things like that. So things that are going to make it so that wherever anybody shows up, that they have the option to receive the content in the way that it works for them. And it's, it's always a work in progress and we're not perfect, but it's definitely something that for us matters quite a bit.
So what are some of the other events that you've had and that you have going on
within the community?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. So many things. We have done workshops that are around your give back components for your business. And for a lot of people, that was a big one, because I know last year a lot of people were like, I don't know what a give back component is. I don't know how to set that up. I don't know how to track it. I don't know how to simplify the process of it just kind of being more automated each month versus it feeling as though you have to go in manually and each time you have to donate. And it's not that you can't donate it manually each time, but the entire purpose for them was to make sure that these things were automatically done so that nobody had to question it. Nobody had to do it. It was just done. So having that workshop in there was great. We have a sound meditation, which some people know as a sound bath. That is amazing. That puts me to sleep when necessary, and I greatly appreciate it. It was made exclusively for us. We also have had trainings around sustainability, which is our theme of the month for February. So we have that. We have had Netflix watch parties in the past. So we've watched things like the death of Marsha P. Johnson. We watched 13th. We watched The Black Godfather. We've done a number of things just to see what are some options? What's maybe the best option now? And what can this look like? Because the reality is with a community, I don't think it's about going in and I'm going to make this space and I'm going to show up one time a month and you're going to be able to do all of these things and it's going to run perfectly. It really is just, let's go in, let's try this, let's see what happens. Let's try a number of different things, see how it feels. What do the members need at that moment? And really just being willing to test and tweak and evolve with it. Because the interesting thing is we technically kind of started back in March, but when George Floyd was murdered, that was a huge shift. And a lot of people's support that was needed was different. And so had we just said, oh, we do this and we do this in one way, that wouldn't address that. And that would feel fully out of integrity for us. And so for us, it is really important to know that we create a space that people know that they can be comfortable, being open and honest, that they're not being watched by people that won't ever communicate or contribute, but also that the level of support is not so standard that if they need more, that there's never a place that can happen.
One thing I feel like you are modeling in that is the way that you're encouraging us to think about our businesses. Is like rather than just like set it and do it a certain way and be stubborn about it, it's like you are so encouraging of us to be in imperfect motion at all times and attuning and changing and experimenting. And that's how you two do the community.
And honestly, to me, that's a way to approach life, because it's so easy to get stuck in whatever rut that is that you have beat into the ground, and you continue to just do that because that's what you do, and not evolving, not ever considering what other possibilities are there, not ever being willing to try and find out. And whether it works or not isn't the goal. It's the exploration of it. That to me is such a life lesson. And it just so happens that we have built a brand that these are cornerstones of how it has to operate.
Wow, I have to pause on that. Whether it works or not is not really the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. People get stuck on that. They're so like, well, if it's not going to work, why am I going to do it? And like, I have kids, and like my 9-year-old, he's like, but this isn't going to work. It's like, but you didn't try. And it's that willingness to try, the willingness to explore, the willingness to get it wrong. Because my thing isn't, I've never had a problem with getting it wrong. Getting it wrong isn't the problem. That doesn't mean it's not scary, because it is sometimes, but there's lessons to be learned. If you have something that happens and there's no lessons that come from it, that's where you can feel like, well, I don't even know why I did this. But if you go through it and you're like, I can see what I would like to be different. I can see how I would want to show up differently. I can see how different counterparts in this situation could have given me different outcomes. That's what you're looking for. Perfection is not the goal. Progress is.
One thing that I think I see you doing, and I'd love to hear about how you do it, is bringing in kind of the right people. And I don't even know if that's how you would put it, but like bringing in the right people for this community in order to be able to have it accomplish what you want it accomplishing.
The second part, you really don't always know if that's going to happen. And the reality is that you have to also release any attachment to that outcome, because you don't know what they're looking for, and you don't know whether or not they've actually found it, and whether or not they're willing to acknowledge the actual fact of that, not their truth of it, but the fact of it. Because sometimes they will find it and they're like, yeah, I'm not ready to be vulnerable with this, or this, I'm going to find some reason why this isn't the thing. And so very often I feel like these kinds of things will come up, and it's like, it's not that maybe a person was a bad fit. It just means that maybe it required a different level of vulnerability that they weren't ready for. Or maybe it required a different level of having to confront and dig into things that they just weren't ready for. Maybe we were not the best fit to facilitate that for them. We've all had, multiple relationships and multiple, layers of them, in which case it wasn't that anyone was good or bad, just not the ideal fit for the desired outcome. And someone else could be the perfect fit for what you needed at that time. And so it's about not holding attachment for anyone that isn't a good fit, and for them to know that it's okay if this doesn't work for you, and that the door stays open if for some reason that changes, because that sometimes happens too. But it's also the fact that even though evolution is very important to us, the cornerstones of what matters to us as far as like our values, the ethics and how we operate, like the roots of it all, they're consistent. So if you listen to Paws on the Play, or if you are taking in our content somewhere on social media, if you're on the email list and you've signed up for an opt-in and then you're getting the newsletters when they go out, the things that you're seeing and hearing from us are consistent. And so it gives an opportunity for people to really decide whether or not we are for them at that point, or if it's not the best fit. If me cursing is not your thing, I am not your girl. I am not your person. If, that point of kind of being a little more, I'll give an example. The podcast that we had go out this week was very different from most of our podcasts because of the fact that we felt like people are exhausted. And for a second, we chose to just be people. And so we literally just kind of, she had this kind of deck of cards, and it's, they're kind of like question prompts, and we went back and forth, and it's not DEI specific. It is very much just two women having this conversation. And it was just completely like, wait, what just happened here? What am I listening to? And we wanted that. For a moment, it's like, wait, we're humans. And you'll still see those pieces come up of like, where the extra depth of things is, and how it's not always just as simple as this, or here's the answer that maybe you would have expected to hear. But it's like, we're two people outside of what people need us to be in the context of what we do. And we showed that. And that's important, because if you're going to work with us separately or independently, you need to know what you're signing up for. And so for us, it is very important to know that we're bringing in people that are the best fit at that moment, because they actually got an idea to figure out, what am I signing up for? Who are you? And so many people are afraid to be who they are, because it's like, well, what happens when I do that? What happens when I'm not perfectly polished and coiffed and I'm not Instagram photo ready? And that expectation is not what I set. And so people are clear on that from the word go. And they also know that they can show up in turn.
Mm-hmm. And then doesn't that create so much more liberation running your business, where you don't then have to go put on that veneer when you're getting ready to run a call or whatever it is?
Right. Exactly. And it's something that, to me, it matters, because I will say that as a Black woman, very often there is this expectation from a respectability politics type of place that I need to speak a certain way, and I need to only talk about certain things, and I need to carry myself a certain way. And it's just like, so you want me to put myself in a box to make you comfortable with the parts of me that you decide you can't quantify? I'm not going to do that to myself. Which is where I'm like, no, I'm not available to make myself smaller to create your comfort, because I'm now prioritizing your comfort. And I don't want to live my life prioritizing everyone else's comfort but my own.
Yes. And you don't want to run your community that way.
Oh my gosh, no. No. And it's important that we all understand that comfort is important and we all need it, but staying too much in that space of comfort can really shut us down, and it can really get us in a place of complacency and almost laziness, where it's like, I don't really have to care. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to care enough to do anything for anyone. And we don't advocate for that. And so, no, not even close. Like, it shows up in no part of what we do. If you are looking to just be comfortable and complacent, you are in the wrong place.
Mm-hmm. You're about to hear more from Erica, including what she's planning post-lockdown. But first, I want to tell you about Create Your Program. This is for you if you're a therapist and or a healer or coach, and you want to expand beyond private practice. Over 5 weeks, you're going to create a pilot program and launch it to the world. I know that sounds like a lot, and it is, but people get it done in this program. And I'm going to walk you and a small group of innovative and open-minded entrepreneurs through it step by step together. And you'll get tons of my support in the process. Apply now by heading over to rebeltherapist.me/create. Okay, let's get back to Erica. When you are looking at applications, so people apply for the community, and when you're looking at those applications, what are you looking for?
Well, the interesting part is we have recently decided to let our applications go.
Oh, okay.
Not because
breaking news.
I know. And it was a very long deliberation on it. And so we were so really just like, we didn't want to risk someone coming in that would be reckless or that would be harmful. And so we kept it. And that was a really important thing to us. And yet at the same time, we also didn't want to create barriers for growth, because we want, just like anything else, when people are going through a process, the more steps that they have to go through, the more time that they have to prolong the actual finishing of it, more reasons to be like, oh, well, I have to wait. Like, I always think about, like, whenever I have to buy stuff, if you give me the option for PayPal, you will get my money way faster. I can just use PayPal. And so I understand what it looks like to think about it. And it wasn't because we wanted vanity numbers or we just wanted to fill it. It was more about the fact that if someone wanted to be in the room and they already were nervous because they were like, I don't know what's going to happen. They're going to call me out. Am I going to be, this is going to be terrible. I'm going to be so ashamed. We didn't want to give them another reason to question whether or not taking this step could be the next best step for them at that moment. But what we did do was we had worked with Autumn Whitboyd, and we had created some contracts with her. We all collaborated on them. And one of those was a terms and conditions contract. And so we specifically created this knowing the things that mattered to us for people being in our space, the things that we wanted them to be aware of, that we wanted them to acknowledge before they came in, that I have read and agreed to these things. And so at the end of the day, you do something ridiculous, you're getting kicked out. Because even if you didn't read it, it's your fault, because we acknowledge this, and we redid our kind of it's our kind of start here course when you come in, and we redid that, and we acknowledge how you do things, how you post, what it looks like to be in conversation, what are the actual, like, do this, don't do this, what to do if you do need support. So we really put things in place to acknowledge what could come up as much as we could without feeling like we were like implanting stuff that didn't need to be, just in case. But we really did set it up in a way that people coming in had multiple touch points to know why they were there, what they were taking part in with the others in the room, the responsibility that they were taking, as well as the responsibility that the others in the room have taken for themselves and their support that they're providing for others, and how to make the most of this. And so we tried to simplify the process by also still making sure that people understood this isn't your regular run-of-the-mill community. And so because of that, we have to make sure that you understand what happens in this space and what won't happen in this space.
Yeah. Oh, and I could totally see someone like being like, I don't think I'm ready to apply, but I'll apply when I think I'm ready. And like you're saying, like, you may need what you're going to learn in this community to get to what you think is ready.
Spot on. Spot on. And that's where it was tough, because we were like, we know why we have it here, but is this possibly creating a barrier to entry? And if the end goal is to be able to support people wherever they are in getting to that next step, we wanted to make sure that we could try to make that path as easy as possible. And again, if somebody, like, you can't prevent everything, but I have no problem whatsoever kicking somebody out if some foolishness happens. Like, I'm not doing that. I have no problem beginning to dig in and say, okay, what can restorative justice or just restorative, care for those that are there look like if something were to happen. But just like, if you are a parent or a mentor in any way, shape, or form, you can't pad this person with bubble wrap forever. And so it's really important to feel like I'm going to kind of let you in the wild a little bit, but know that I'm here. Know that I'm still kind of watching. So you're not just totally on your own. And so it really felt a lot like that, because we wanted them to feel, as though they could claim their empowerment to go out and go forth. And yet we're not leaving you on your own. And so I love the fact that we have people in the room that are supportive, and they show so much vulnerability and humility. And I mean, it's amazing to me how, like, I remember when the coup on the Capitol happened, and, we're all trying to process our feelings over an insurgency right here. When for a lot of us, it was like, this doesn't surprise me. And still, what just happened? And, immediately people are popping up. They're like, we know the two of you are close to DC. Are you okay? And like little things like that to me matter. Or people coming in and being like, I know that this is a lot right now with the election, wellness check. How is everyone? Or, I saw this and it really struck me and it reminded me of so-and-so. And I just, I wanted to come in and bring that to you and let you know that I'm witnessing you in this moment. Those kinds of things are just such demonstrations of deep empathy. And during a time when I feel like people's capacity to feel for themselves and others is so taxed. And I don't take that lightly. That's a huge thing. And I'm so grateful for it. So grateful for it.
That's also making me think, so it's been a year, probably as we're publishing this, it's been like a year since you opened the community. And you've also got like these founding members at this point. Like, you've got people who are so steeped in the process and in the culture of Paws on the Play that I'm imagining that then helps as other people are coming in to see how you run things and how all of the founding members kind of move in it.
Right. Right. It is a humbling and proud and very heartwarming moment to see people holding space for each other in such powerful ways by choice. To see people that don't all identify the same holding space for those that don't identify the same as them. People asking questions that don't always have clean, clear, and simplified answers, but creating the space to, as Brene Brown will say, kind of rumble with it. That, it's not about being perfect, and seeing relationships being created because there are people that have been in there that are kind of setting the stage for some of the people that are a little newer. Maybe they're nervous, or maybe it's just a point in life where it's like, I don't know how to be visible right now. And yet there's never that feeling of about time you showed up, or about time you said something. Like, it's very, I'm here and when you're ready. And there's something really powerful about the lack of pressure that comes from just knowing that someone is holding space for you. And for us, India and I never wanted to create something where we had to hold all the space. We wanted it to be something that those in the room could hold space for each other. And to know that those things are possible, whether it's around big things, small things, silly things, whatever it is, but that ability to be human and imperfect and yet still be just as valid and just as respected and honored.
And speaking of relationships, you and India co-founded this, and then you also each have your own businesses outside of what you do together. So how in the hell do you balance all of that?
Well, technically, I also have a salon. I have had a beauty business for, 13 years now, I think it is. It's been a very long time. I've been in the beauty industry for over 20 years. And so that's been constant.
And are you planning on keeping all of that going long term? That is so amazing.
Yeah, because I really appreciate the interaction and the conversations that come from it. And I'm very fortunate to have a number of clients, that do work in DC, that are lawyers, that do work in nonprofits and just a number of different things, to where I'm able to have these conversations with, like, for example, I have a number of clients that are teachers. And being able to understand what some of that can look like in those conversations, they're invaluable. And these are people that I've had as clients for well over 10 years. And so I value them as humans. And so I personally really enjoy that part of it. And I do like being able to have this space that I've created over the years that people can partake in that. And so that part it's still there. I would love to continue taking my coaching over to the beauty industry. It needs my help. I see you, beauty industry. I see you. But yeah, we have a number of iterations of what we do that shows up in different ways. The beauty is that what Flaunt Your Fire is for India and what Erica Courdae is for me, it really does work in tandem to create what Paws on the Plate is. And so while it does have its own heartbeat and it's not simply an extension, it goes together so beautifully. And having something that we can do together, because we've worked together in multiple ways over the years. When she was a photographer and I was still doing hair and makeup, that was how we started. And so we knew how to work with each other and how to have that conducive relationship. And being able to have kind of that yours, mine, and ours means that we do have the space for what works for us separately, but we're also able to bring those together to benefit those that really do need to have them combined. And that's been a beautiful thing to have that. It's not easy because it is a lot of work, but it's worth it because I mean, I've never been someone to shy away from doing a lot of work. I grew up having multiple jobs and whatnot. So it's like, this is normal. This is all normal. At least now so much of it does go hand in hand. And I really do like that part.
Yeah, everything is feeling really aligned. How often do you and India meet?
Well, COVID has kind of killed that. It used to be a lot more.
So you used to meet in person a lot more?
We would, because we're about maybe an hour away from each other. So we're pretty close. So we would do things in person. We really like doing networking events and things like that, whether it was because I held them at my studio or whether or not we would go and do things. But we would also co-work together because that meant that we could actually work together and get work done. And yet, especially now, like we have a lot of calls that we do together. So, we would have times that we would do some of those together. We occasionally will now, only because we're in each other's bubble, but it's a lot less. But we talk pretty much on a daily basis. So, and we're also cognizant to make sure that it's not always work, because the beauty is that I am supported by an amazing woman, and I'm grateful for her as that before being my business partner and anything else. She's an amazing human, and I love her dearly.
So how do you protect that? Like, do you have any little practices to help you protect making time for the friendship? Like, all right, we're not going to talk about business until we check in, or does it feel like it happens naturally?
For the most part, I think it happens naturally. If we ever have those moments when we kind of get stuck in it, we'll kind of be like, all right, we're going to finish this, and then we're getting out of work mode, and we will do that. I will say one of the things though that is helpful is, I mean, we do treat it like a business. We don't assume like, oh, you'll just do this, or oh, I'll just do this. I mean, no, like Flaunt Your Fire does social media for Erica Courdae, and I'm a client. And so I pay India. Like, this is not just this, oh yeah, she just does this for me. No, she has a business and she treats me like a client. And so therefore I pay her like a client. And for me, I think that's a part of the boundaries, because sometimes what can happen is, you know, everybody's just expecting, oh, you'll do this and I don't have to pay you. And it's just like, oh, it's fine. We're doing it for each other. And I think that can sometimes get a little iffy. So to me, that's one of the things. I mean, of course, like contracts, I think, is important. Having transparency about what is happening. So like, I'm never going to go and, you know, have some business, you know, charge and it's like, oops, I didn't tell you about that, but I bought that $10,000 book I told you about. I'm not doing things like that. That's not going to happen. But there's also a lot of shared conversation around, where do we want things to go? What are your goals? What do you see for this? How do you feel about this? So there's never that place of like, I made the best decision for the business because I assumed that this was going to be okay with you. And this is what I think. That's not how we operate. It really is, you know, what do you think about this? What's your opinion on this? You know, we take time to really talk through the decisions and the choices that we're making so that no one feels as though they were steamrolled, or they didn't have a say in things, or that they could not be a part of the decision-making process. So that respect that we have as individuals is very important to continue into how we respect each other with continuing to grow the business, the decisions that are made, and how we run it.
I love that. So, Erica, what are you really excited about this year, next year, going forward?
Coming out of captivity. Let me out. Let me out. Other than sending my kids back to school, send my kids back to school. I really do look forward to being able to travel again and to be around people, because I was at a place that literally when COVID started, I think shortly before that, I had spoke at ShePodcasts. I spoke at AltSummit right before everything happened. And I was also scheduled to speak at the Being Boss conference in April that was going to be in Louisiana, which I still did it virtually. But I had a lot of things lined up, and damn, COVID showed up and derailed all my plans. And so I am looking forward to being able to get out again and being able to hug the people in person that I have connected with virtually, people that I've seen their face, I've heard their voices, I've learned about them. I'm hearing their stories, their experiences, their challenges, their triumphs. And I literally am excited to be able to be face to face.
Thank you so much, Erica.
Thank you, Annie. This was great. I love this. You asked such good questions. I'm like, hey, think about that. Thank you. That was amazing.
Thank you. Oh, that means a lot. I'm going to talk about 4 takeaways that stand out to me from this conversation. Takeaway number 1. Erica and India have created a bunch of different kinds of events, trainings, workshops, podcast interviews, including the community, sound baths, watch parties. So they've created all of this cool stuff, and they do it with a spirit of co-creation, experimentation, and responsiveness. It's not set it and forget it. It's always evolving. It's always attuning to what people need.
We create a space that people know that they can be comfortable, being open and honest, that they're not being watched by people that won't ever communicate or contribute, but also that the level of support is not so standard that if they need more, that there's never a place that can happen.
Takeaway number 2. Erica and India have a consistent set of values and a style that comes across in their podcast and in all of their content. They show who they are and how they move through the world so that when people sign up for the community, they know those values and that style will be running through everything they do.
Even though evolution is very important to us, the cornerstones of what matters to us as far as like our values, the ethics and how we operate, like the roots of it all, they're consistent.
Takeaway number 3. Paws on the Play has set up a very intentional onboarding process. They got rid of their applications recently, but they give you multiple touch points so that folks who join understand what's expected of them and how to join into that culture.
And so we tried to simplify the process by also still making sure that people understood this isn't your regular run-of-the-mill community. And so because of that, we have to make sure that you understand what happens in this space and what won't happen in this space.
Takeaway number 4. Erica and India have intentionally set up a community where a lot of the value comes from people having relationships with each other. So it's not all about the two of them providing everything. For anyone who's considering creating a community, that's a really important piece. If you set things up where you're the one who's creating all the value, you're going to be really busy or really exhausted.
India and I never wanted to create something where we had to hold all the space. We wanted it to be something that those in the room could hold space for each other.
So those are my 4 takeaways. You can find out more about Erica at ericacourdae.com. That's EricaCourdae.com, where you can also get her free Imperfect Allies evaluation checklist. I want to thank Cosmo Palms, as always, for editing this podcast. If you found this episode supportive, please share it with your favorite therapist or healer. That's how we reach more rebellious business owners. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you next time.